terrified German Shepherd on a rock in the middle of a raging river. Then something shocking happened. Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new to our channel. In the quaint village of Millbrook, nestled on the banks of the ever-swelling Millbrook River, a tale of daring and unexpected heroism unfolded that captured the hearts of its residents. The river, usually a peaceful murmur beneath the old stone bridge, had transformed into a furious beast after days of relentless rain, carrying debris and broken branches with merciless force. Amid this chaos, on a barely visible rock in the middle of the river, a terrified German Shepherd found itself stranded, its fur matted against its body, shivering from the cold. The poor creature's situation was dire, with the violent water threatening to sweep it away at any moment. Enter Harold Benson, a retired schoolteacher of 65, known for his morning walks along the river, a routine he had kept for years since his retirement. On this fateful morning, Harold had planned to enjoy the powerful sight of the swollen river, but as he approached the bridge, a faint, desperate bark caught his attention. He paused, his old heart pounding in his chest, as he realized the sound was coming from the river. Peering over the railing, Harold spotted the German Shepherd. The sight tugged at his heartstrings. The dog was clearly in distress, its eyes wide with fear as it crouched on the slippery, moss-covered rock. The rock was barely above the water level, and it was only a matter of time before it would be submerged. Without a moment's hesitation, but with the cautiousness of age, Harold assessed the situation. There was no sign of anyone else around, no footprints in the mud, no other souls brave enough to venture near the treacherous waters. He knew that waiting for help was not an option. The dog might not last much longer. His eyes scanned the riverbank and found a partially submerged log that might offer a path closer to the stranded animal. With the steadiness that belied his age, Harold made his way down to the river's edge. He tested the log with his cane. It was sturdy enough to hold his weight. Taking a deep breath, Harold began inching his way across the log, his eyes fixed on the terrified dog. As he reached the midpoint, a dreadful crack echoed through the air. The log shifted ominously under his weight. For a heart-stopping moment, Harold thought both he and the log would be claimed by the river. But steadying himself with a lifetime's worth of patience, he pressed on. Reaching the end of the log, Harold was close enough to see the sheer terror in the dog's eyes. With a soothing tone, he called out to the animal, promising safety. The dog, driven by instinct, made a small leap towards Harold. With reflexes he hadn't used in years, Harold reached out and grabbed the shepherd's collar. The rescue was not yet complete, as both their weights on the precarious log spelled potential disaster. Harold knew he had to move quickly. He coaxed the dog to stay calm and balanced as they carefully retraced their steps across the log, back to the safety of the riverbank. Once on solid ground, the shepherd, though still shaking, wagged its tail weakly at Harold. The old man, his heart still racing with adrenaline, sat beside the dog, allowing both of them a moment to recover. Harold looked into the dog's grateful eyes and knew right away he'd made a new friend. The story of Harold and the German Shepherd spread quickly through Millbrook, a tale of unexpected bravery and kindness that reminded everyone in the village of the value of courage at any age. Harold, who'd always lived quietly and without fanfare, found himself hailed as a hero. As for the German Shepherd, Harold decided to give him a home, a decision that filled the quiet gaps in his retired life with newfound joy and companionship. They became inseparable, a familiar sight on the riverbank, where Harold had once walked alone. The village often talked about that stormy day, using the story to inspire their children and grandchildren with the lesson that courage knows no age. And sometimes, help comes from the most unexpected places. That he was indeed alive, not trapped in a relentless nightmare. Harold Benson, once merely a retired teacher, now found himself a survivor of the river's merciless grip. His chest heaved with each breath, the cold air burning his lungs as he lay beside the river that had nearly claimed his life. Gathering his thoughts, Harold turned to the German Shepherd, now known as River, whose eyes sparkled with a mix of gratitude and concern. River had not only remained by the branch, but had actively participated in Harold's rescue, a display of loyalty that far surpassed the ordinary bond between man and dog. "Thank you, boy," Harold managed to utter, his voice a hoarse whisper. The dog wagged its tail weakly, as if to acknowledge the mutual rescue that had just transpired. As Harold slowly sat up, a sharp pain shot through his spine, a harsh reminder of the ordeal. He looked around. The landscape was familiar, yet felt entirely alien now. The trees that lined the riverbank, once markers on a peaceful path, now stood like silent sentinels to the chaos that had unfolded. With effort, Harold rose to his feet, his knees trembling. River immediately stood with him, pressing his body against Harold's leg, offering support or seeking comfort, perhaps both. It was clear that their fates were intertwined, bonded by the shared dance with death. As they began their slow trek back to civilization, Harold mulled over the day's events. His morning had started as a simple attempt to enjoy nature, yet had spiraled into a life-threatening battle against the wild. He pondered the strange twist of fate that had led him to River. Why here? Why today? And, crucially, what did it mean going forward? The journey back was quiet. The only sounds, the squelch of their sodden footsteps, and the distant rush of the river still raging behind them. Each step Harold took was a testament to human resilience and the will to survive, bolstered by the company of a dog that had shown extraordinary bravery. After what felt like an eternity, the outline of Millbrook appeared, the quaint village now a beacon of safety. As they approached, Harold's thoughts turned to what awaited him. How would he explain this miraculous survival? Would anyone believe the profound bond that had formed so quickly between him and River? He knew one thing for sure: his life had changed forever. No longer was he just Harold Benson, the retiree. He was Harold, the survivor, the man who'd been saved by his dog. Upon reaching his home, Harold paused at the front door, turning to River with a thoughtful look. "You're not just a companion, River," he said. "You're my guardian." It wasn't a question, but a declaration of the new reality they would share. Inside, the warmth of the house embraced them, a stark contrast to the cold they had endured. Harold fetched a dry towel and gently rubbed River down, his hands careful, almost reverent. As the evening wore on, Harold made a simple meal for himself and a hearty one for River, watching the dog eat with a newfound appreciation for the creature's presence in his life. He knew the next day would bring questions, possibly reporters, and definitely curious neighbors. But tonight, it was just him and River, two survivors sharing a quiet moment of peace after the storm. Sitting in his favorite chair, Harold didn't bother turning on the television. Instead, he reflected on the day's terror and triumph, his gaze often drifting to River, who lay contentedly at his feet. The events replayed in his mind, each moment a snapshot of fear, action, and eventual safety. He thought about the future, about what changes he might need to make to accommodate his new four-legged friend, who had proved his worth 100-fold. Perhaps it was time to give back, to advocate for rescue dogs, or to simply be an example of the unexpected gifts life can offer when you least expect them. As the clock chimed late into the night, Harold felt a sense of calm settle over him. He had faced death and survived. More importantly, he had gained a friend, a protector, and a new reason to wake each morning with gratitude. Harold Benson and River, once strangers, now shared a bond forged by adversity, a bond unbreakable, defined by courage and mutual rescue. Harold Benson gazed deeply into the shepherd's soulful eyes, sensing the weight of their shared ordeal. As the dog's tail offered a slow, reassuring wag, a bond was sealed, one born from the tempest they had weathered together. Harold chuckled weakly, the sound raspy against the chorus of the river's continuing roar. He felt a profound connection, an unspoken agreement of loyalty and protection. "Looks like it's just you and me now," Harold said, his voice hoarse but warm. The shepherd, whom Harold decided to call River, nudged him gently again, as if in agreement. As Harold struggled to his feet, his body screamed in protest. Every muscle ached, every joint stiffened, but the need to return to safety to civilization pushed him onward. River stayed close, his presence a comforting assurance. Harold tested his weight on his legs, unsure if they would support him, but determination fueled his every step. They began the slow journey back to town, the morning light slicing through the trees, casting long shadows on the path that seemed to dance with their every movement. The normalcy of the town seemed a world away from the chaos of the river. Harold's mind raced with questions about River's past. Who did he belong to? What circumstances had led to his fateful presence on that rock? The answers seemed as distant as the calm life Harold had known just hours before. Each step was a testament to Harold's resolve, and with River by his side, he felt an unexpected resurgence of strength. He marveled at the dog's resilience, how despite the ordeal, River marched loyally beside him, occasionally glancing up with a look that seemed to check on Harold's condition. As they neared the edge of town, the familiar sights of everyday life cars parked along the streets, the quaint fences surrounding cozy homes appeared surreal to Harold. The ordeal had transformed an ordinary route into a passage of transformation and realization. Harold sighed in relief, feeling the first signal bars return on his phone, a luxury he had almost forgotten. But just as he began to relax, River froze. His body tensed, ears perked, and eyes fixated on something off the trail. Harold followed his gaze and felt a chill creep up his spine. Partially hidden beneath the bushes was a frayed collar and a torn leash. The fabric looked violently ripped, signs of a desperate struggle. "What happened here, boy?" Harold murmured, kneeling beside the evidence of a darker tale. River approached slowly, sniffing the torn collar, his behavior shifting from companion to protector. Harold's heart raced as the pieces began to fall into place. This was no simple case of a lost dog. This was a survivor of abuse, a soul who had perhaps escaped a fate far worse than the River's wrath. As he stood there, piecing together the grim clues, Harold felt a resolve harden within him. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a mission. He looked at River, who returned his gaze with a steadfastness that reassured Harold he was not alone in this. "We need to report this. Find out if anyone knows anything," Harold decided aloud, his voice now firm with purpose. He reached for his phone, fingers still trembling slightly from the cold and exertion, and dialed the local sheriff's office. The conversation was brief but urgent. Harold explained where they were and what he had found. The dispatcher's voice was professional, yet carried a note of concern. They agreed to send a patrol car to meet him. As Harold pocketed his phone, he looked at River, who sat quietly by his side. "Looks like we're in this together now," he said to the dog, who seemed to understand the gravity in Harold's tone. Together, they waited for the authorities, Harold sitting back against a tree, River's head resting against his knee. Harold ran his fingers through River's fur, each stroke a silent vow of protection and advocacy for his new companion. In the cool shade of the early morning, with the chaos of the river now a distant murmur, Harold felt a deep peace settle over him. Despite the questions and the challenges that lay ahead, he knew one thing for sure: whatever the future held, they would face it together. Harold Benson steadied his breath as he stood on the verge of Millbrook's quiet streets, a million thoughts racing through his mind. The shepherd, which he now affectionately called River, looked up at him with eyes full of an old soul's wisdom. This wasn't just a dog. This was a creature with a story marred by trials Harold could only begin to comprehend. As he adjusted the damp, mud-stained leash in his hands, Harold's mind turned over the possibilities. Had River been running from abuse, or perhaps something even more sinister? The frayed edges of the leash didn't just speak of physical struggle, they whispered of desperate escape. "Where have you come from, boy? What are you trying to tell me?" Harold murmured, his gaze locked with River's steady one. The dog's tail gave a slight wag, a gesture of trust that seemed to say, "I'm with you now." This simple act of faith from the shepherd fortified Harold's resolve. He would not turn his back on this brave soul who had chosen to trust him at his most vulnerable. As they walked through the town, Harold noticed the curious glances from his neighbors, their eyes flickering with a mix of surprise and concern towards River. The whispers didn't go unnoticed, and as Harold passed the local cafe, he overheard snippets of conversation that piqued his curiosity and unease. "That's the Benson fellow, isn't it? And that dog. Hasn't it been seen up at old Palmer's place?" "Yes, heard it was a troublemaker, that one." Poor creature probably got the worst of Palmer's temper. Harold's pace slowed. Palmer, a name that carried weight around Millbrook, known for his reclusive nature and less than savory reputation. Could this be the link to River's past? Before he could probe the townsfolk further, Mr. Howard, a retired fisherman and a repository of the town's secrets, approached him. "That dog there, Harold, where'd you find him?" "By the river, caught in a bad spot. Could have drowned. Harold replied, watching Mr. Howard's face closely. Mr. Howard's eyes narrowed. A flicker of concern, or was it fear, passing over his features. Harold, be careful. That dog's been around. Seen things I reckon shouldn't have seen. Palmer's, maybe. Just watch your back, all right? The warning sent a chill down Harold's spine, cementing his fears. Palmer's land was off limits, known for its unwelcoming owner and strange occurrences. If River had come from there, what danger had he escaped? And more importantly, was the danger still lurking? Determined to uncover the truth, Harold made a decision. He would not let the mystery surrounding River go unsolved. If the dog had escaped from Palmer, then there was more at stake than just a troubled past. There could be real danger, both for River and potentially for anyone who harbored him. Back at his modest home, Harold set River up with a makeshift bed in the living room. As he dried the shepherd off with a towel, the dog leaned into the touch, its eyes closing briefly in relief. The trust and gratitude evident in River's behavior only deepened Harold's commitment to protecting him. Sitting on the floor next to River, Harold pulled out his phone and began to make calls. First to a few close friends for advice, then to the local animal shelter to check if anyone had reported River missing, or worse, as a nuisance. Each call left him more resolute to stand by River's side. That night, as Harold lay in bed, he couldn't help but watch River, who slept soundly on the floor beside him. The day's events replayed in his mind, each moment a step on a path he had never expected to walk. The risks were clear, the dangers real, but as he drifted off to sleep, Harold knew one thing for sure: whatever came their way, he and River would face it together. For Harold Benson, life had taken an unexpected turn towards an adventure he'd never sought but now embraced fully. River, once a mere stray on the cusp of death by the river, had become his companion, his friend, his charge. Together, they would unravel the mystery of River's past, no matter what secrets lay hidden in the shadows of Millbrook. In the quiet hamlet of Millbrook, under the shadow of looming pines and the persistent echo of the river, Harold Benson stood at his door, muscles tense, the shepherd named River by his side. The mystery of River's past had just knocked on his door, literally. The fabric of the worn leash in his hand felt heavier now, a symbol of the battle this brave dog had endured. The chill that ran down Harold's spine earlier in the evening was nothing compared to the frost that gripped him now as the knock sounded again. Slow, deliberate, it seemed to beat in time with Harold's racing heart. Who was this at his door so late? The dog's growl, low and threatening, was a stark contrast to the usually quiet night. With a cautious breath, Harold cracked the door open, his eyes meeting those of a rugged man whose mud-caked boots had seen better days. His jacket, stained and torn, hinted at a life led on the fringes. "I think you've got something of mine," the man stated, his gaze piercing and possessive. Harold's grip on the door tightened. River's growl deepened, his body pressed against Harold's leg. The man's eyes flicked to River. "There you are," he muttered, a step forward, his intent clear. "Come on, boy, let's go." River didn't budge, instead pressing closer to Harold. The standoff in the doorway was palpable, each second stretching long and thin. "Been looking for him." The man's voice tightened. "Damn mutt ran off a few days ago. Got spooked, but he's mine." Harold's jaw clenched. Spooked? No, this dog hadn't just run away, he had escaped. Harold recalled the frayed leash, the faint stains of blood, and the way River had fought for his life both against the river's cruel embrace and, it seemed, against this man before him. "He's not going anywhere," Harold stated firmly, stepping into the gap of the door, shielding River. "If he's yours, why is he terrified of you?" The man's face darkened, his body tensed as if preparing for a confrontation. "You better watch yourself, boy. You have no idea what you're getting into." Harold stood his ground, his resolve as solid as the ground beneath his feet. "You should go," he replied, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "Because if you take one more step, I'm calling the cops." A long moment passed, a silent battle of wills. Then the man stepped back, his features twisting into a scowl. "Fine, keep the damn mutt," he spat, but his words carried an ominous weight. As the man retreated into the darkness, the sound of gravel under tires soon followed, marking his departure. Harold didn't move, his gaze fixed on the empty space where the man had stood, the threat of his return hanging heavy in the air. He knelt down, placing a reassuring hand on River, who remained tense, his eyes still tracking the night. "He's gone, boy." "You're safe now," Harold murmured, feeling the dog's muscles begin to relax under his touch. As they retreated inside, Harold locked the door behind them, the click of the lock loud in the quiet of his home. He led River to the living room, settling down with a sigh. The events of the evening replayed in his mind, each detail sharp and foreboding. Sitting there, Harold knew this was just the beginning. River's past was catching up to him, and now it was Harold's too. The responsibility weighed on him, but so did the bond he felt with River, a bond forged in adversity and solidified in mutual trust and protection. He looked at River, who had finally settled down, his head resting by Harold's knee. "Guess I need to figure out what to call you, huh?" Harold joked lightly, trying to ease the tension that clung to the air. River looked up, his tail thudding softly against the floor. "How about River?" Harold suggested. At the name, River's tail wagged more vigorously. "All right, River it is," Harold smiled, ruffling the dog's fur. As he sat there, the weight in Harold's chest began to lift. He was no longer just a retiree in a small town. He was a guardian, a friend, a protector. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and dangers, but one thing was clear: River wasn't alone anymore, and neither was Harold. This story was a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of life, the way it could twist and turn, leading from solitude to companionship, from peace to conflict, all in the space of a single day. Harold didn't choose this battle, but he was ready to face it, with River by his side. Their journey together had just begun, a journey of courage, of facing down shadows, and of forging a future, come what may. If this story touches your heart, remember, sometimes the ones we save end up saving us, in ways we never expected. Harold Benson's unexpected encounter and ensuing bond with River, the German Shepherd, resonates deeply with a fundamental truth about human resilience and the capacity for compassion that dwells within us all. This story, while unique in its unfolding, mirrors the everyday challenges and spontaneous moments of connection that many of us experience in our own lives. It underlines a poignant lesson about the unforeseen battles we sometimes find ourselves fighting and the unexpected alliances that can arise as a result. In our daily lives, just as in Harold's, we often come across situations that test our courage, push our limits, and force us to make quick decisions that might have long-lasting impacts. These moments can be as mundane as standing up for a colleague in the workplace, adopting a pet that needs a home, or as significant as advocating for change within our communities. The essence of these experiences is not unlike Harold's encounter with River, an initial challenge that unfolds into a deeper understanding and commitment to care for another. River's story teaches us about the power of empathy and the importance of taking a stand, even when the easier path might be to walk away. Harold's decision to protect River, despite the potential danger he faced from the dog's previous owner, is a testament to the strength of moral conviction. This narrative encourages us not only to act with kindness when faced with a creature in distress, but to apply the same principle towards our fellow humans. It prompts us to question, how often do we pass by opportunities to help because we are too busy, too frightened, or too indifferent to intervene? Moreover, Harold and River's story is a reminder of the unexpected rewards that come from making compassionate choices. In choosing to protect River, Harold gained not just a loyal companion, but a new sense of purpose. This mirrors the fulfillment often found by those who volunteer their time, foster children, or work in professions aimed at helping others. These actions build communities that are not only safer, but richer in trust and mutual respect. The tale also touches on the themes of perseverance and resilience, qualities that are increasingly necessary in today's world. Whether it's dealing with personal loss, professional setbacks, or broader societal issues, the capacity to continue in the face of adversity is invaluable. Harold's resolve to keep River safe against potential threats parallels the determination required to overcome personal challenges or to work towards social change. In conclusion, the narrative of Harold and River extends beyond the simple act of rescue to symbolize the profound impact of kindness, courage, and steadfastness in our lives. It serves as a beacon, encouraging us to be vigilant in our surroundings, to act with compassion, and to be courageous in our convictions. By embracing these values, we not only enrich our own lives, but also contribute to the well-being of our communities, making them places where, like River, those in need can find safety and a chance at a new beginning. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story moved you, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable spirit of life. See you in the next story.